All right, everybody, welcome to another My Complete Health Talk. This week we're going to be discussing iodine in all of its forms, and we have a special guest with us to help facilitate the recording, Dr. Ricky Miller.
Hello.
Dr. Miller, why don't you explain? Everybody should know who I am. I'm Ian. I'm the crazy health guy, but Ricky is the real doctor, so give him a little introduction.
My name is Dr. Ricky Miller. I'm a doctor of chiropractic. Studied at New York Chiropractic College, which has now been renamed to something that I can't remember. It's a great remarketing tool. But anyways, a lot of nutrition at the school, and I now practice applied kinesiology type of chiropractic, which does a lot to dig into how nutrients show up in our body.
Excellent. And if anybody that's listening online, Dr. Miller is the chiropractor that I refer everybody to when they need manipulation. So if you need to get cracked and you're in the Northeast Ohio area, I would highly recommend that you give him a call. Just message the clinic for more information. So moving on to some housekeeping, medical disclaimer. This website presentation does not provide medical advice. The information including, but not limited to text, graphics, images, and other material contained in this website/presentation are for informational purposes only. No material is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have read on the internet or a website, because you can't possibly read data or think for yourself. And now you know. So, intro, iodine. So what is iodine? What are halides? Halide toxicity, iodine and metabolism, iodine and detox, supplementation, iodine and thyroid medication.
Let's get started.
That's right. So what is iodine? Iodine belongs to a class of elements known as halides. So if we all go back to our chemistry days in high school and you had to memorize the periodic table, halides are all in that one row with like fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and then obviously iodine is in there. There's isotopes of every single one of them. We'll talk about those later. If you don't remember what isotopes are, that's fine. So the other halides include bromine, chlorine, and fluorine. The body stores and uses two kinds of iodine: elemental iodine, or I2, which is just the pure iodine. It looks brown or purple depending on what solution is in, and then potassium iodide. So iodide, not iodine, but it can be referred to as both ways. So whenever you think of iodized salt, you're eating potassium iodide, and it is a salt, and it does taste salty. Now the body does use both of those forms, and it uses them in different ways. The potassium iodide is all that you need for metabolism, although that's a little bit debatable, but for the most part, it's all that you need for metabolism. It's all that you need to protect against thyroid incursion for radioactive iodine, so nuclear fallout, like radioactive tuna, that sort of thing. So it's incredibly useful outside of, just some sort of disaster, because the whole world's a disaster these days, so there you go. But you do need both forms because, for just off the top of my head, any woman out there, and even men, because men get too much estrogen exposure now. Breast cancer in both men and women is on the rise, and breast tissue stores and uses I2, or elemental iodine, and that's why you need both particular forms for the whole body. Now there are major challenges with supplementing with iodine. And every cell in the body needs it. So before we dig into iodine, we're going to have to talk about everything that gets in the way of iodine. Mm-hmm. Because this presentation would just be too short, because it's like, if you don't know what's wrong with you, just do what they did before the chemical board or the pharmaceutical companies now the FDA and Big Pharma took over the whole medical industry, and every medical professional before 1954 would just give you a ton of iodine and liver pills and you'd be fine. That's what they did.
Uh-huh.
You know, anybody that's ever seen Poirot knows that it's like you got your iodine, you got your liver pills, it's done. And then you go take a vacation to the coast. So bromine, halides. So first halide we're going to go through is bromine. Bromines are common endocrine disruptors, and what makes it so dangerous is it competes for the same receptor as iodine. So the same receptors in your cells that capture iodine, bromine competes for that.
Mm-hmm.
So what's really interesting about bromine, and you can see lower in the slide, is that up until about 1975, 1980, iodine was used as a bread conditioner, a flour conditioner. So when you went to eat bread, that's why people can't really understand, why did I eat bread as a child and I was super skinny, but now I eat bread and I'm a bloated mess? Well, number one, it's not the same wheat. It's a Franken wheat that you didn't have when you were little. And then number two, it's toxic with bromine and glyphosates because they flip the iodine out and they put bromine in there. And bromine does work as a leavening agent and a dough conditioner, but I used to say, oh, it was to save money. Bromine costs more than iodine, so it's not to save money.
Mm-hmm. What this reminds me of with the competition is all of the firefighter training that I had with carbon monoxide. Mm-hmm. It's the same concept where the carbon monoxide will displace or will take the place of the oxygen that you're supposed to be absorbing in your body.
Right, because the same charge potential. That's correct, absolutely. And that's why, and you know, it's like, can you smell or taste or feel carbon monoxide?
You cannot.
And it just sneaks up on you, and before you know it, you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's incredibly dangerous, absolutely. I actually have some firsthand stories of carbon monoxide poisoning, but not for myself, but for other people. And we couldn't figure out why people on this particular camping trip were getting sick. Well, somebody didn't understand why the generator had to be put further away, and this particular tent was downwind of the generator, and they were getting all of that blown into there, and like we had to send people to the hospital. Mm-hmm. So yeah,
watch out for that.
Mm-hmm. So bromine. So if you're exposed to a lot of bromine, your body will not hold on to the iodine it needs. And iodine affects every tissue in the body, not just your thyroid. So bromine poisoning can be both acute and it can be chronic. So acute bromine poisoning is actually akin to more of a chlorine poisoning, where it's a burn. Okay, so you can really mess yourself up with it. So it's found in pesticides, particularly methyl bromide, used mainly on strawberries, predominantly in California. And this is why I tell everybody is that fresh and local. Know where your food is coming from, because if you don't know where your food's coming from, then you have no idea what's on it, because a lot of the places around here, they don't have the certified stamp of approval as organic, but they are organic. Because these chemicals actually cost quite a bit of money, and so somebody that's just doing this has a small farm, they show up to the farmer's market and everything, oftentimes it is organic if you just ask. Now what's interesting about the organic label, it has nothing to do with nutrition at all, because my hydroponic, because I use certain man-made hydroponic salts, those don't qualify as organic. So all of my stuff is non-organic, but it's so much higher quality than most of the organic stuff that's found everywhere else. So it's a name game, so you got to be careful. And it's used in plastics, like those that make computers or your iPhone. We talked about bakery goods. Flours often contain dough conditioner called potassium bromate. So that bromate is it's an ion of bromide. Soft drinks, including Mountain Dew, Gatorade, Sun Drip, Squirt, Fresca, and other citrus flavored. And that includes, so it's like all the citrus flavors of everything need bromide to attach to the citrus oils so that they can become water soluble.
Wow, that is interesting.
Right, and this is where we get the concept of Mountain Dew mouth. That's bromide poisoning.
Wow.
Yeah, and I have a few hygienists that come to my clinic, and one of them worked directly in West Virginia, and she said it's their entire lower jaw that melts away from their face, but they're so addicted to it they won't stop drinking it. Medications such as Atrovent inhalers, Atrovent nasal spray, Probanthen for ulcers, anesthesia agents, they all have it. Fire retardants, BPDEs or polybromo diphenyl ethers. Those are used in fabrics, carpets, upholsteries, and mattresses. So, like when you get that new mattress smell or the new car smell, that's bromide. That's going straight to your brain. And then bromine, this is what just gets me. So now that we know how toxic bromine is, it is super toxic. One of the things that they sell it is in hot tub treatment agents, so you can just take a hot bath in bromine. Now, it'll keep the algae down.
Sure.
Yeah, because it's just killing you and everything else that's in there. So, according to Van Leeuwen, who has extensively studied the effects of sodium bromide on the thyroid function, although the bromide ion is widely distributed in nature, the main route of exposure in humans stems from bromine residues in food commodities as a result of the abundant use of bromide-containing pesticides, like methyl bromide and ethylene dibromide for soil fumigation and extensive horticulture, or the post-harvest treatment. And this is precisely why I use hydroponics. I still do my hydroponics outside, but I don't trust any of the soil anywhere anymore because I didn't live on that land, and I don't know what my neighbors are spraying.
Right.
And so once it goes into that groundwater area that is under all of the houses, it's if you got 10 houses and 9 houses are doing organic, and you got one guy over here that's just putting Roundup and other things on everything because he wants a beautiful lawn, everybody else is contaminated too. So I don't trust any of it. One clinical consequence or overexposure of bromide is suppression of your thyroid, leading to hypothyroidism, which will be discussed shortly. Another is bromide toxicity. When you ingest or absorb bromine, displaces iodine. This iodine deficiency leads to an increased risk of cancer of the breast, thyroid gland, ovary, and prostate. Cancers that we see at an alarmingly high rates today. The phenomenon is significant enough to have given its own name, the bromide dominance theory.
Bum, bum, bum.
Yep. Aside from the effects of endocrine glands, bromine is toxic in and of itself. Bromide builds up in the central nervous system and results in many problems. It is a central nervous system depressant and can trigger a number of psychological symptoms such as acute paranoia and psychotic symptoms. So the question there is, I suffered, and my brother and a number of people suffer from depression and acute depression and bipolar depression. When I started doing high-dose iodine myself, it virtually all went away. Now, sometimes it comes back because of weirdo frequencies from space, but that's another discussion.
I had a pretty hard hit with depression after a fire. So when I was a fireman, we would probably not follow the rules properly and not use our masks and our filters the way we were supposed to.
Yeah.
And the next day I would be so down. And I always thought it was the adrenaline.
Well, there is a significant effect to that as well, but given the modern house, and the modern house is fire retardant,
it's on everything,
right?
Now.
And so I would definitely attribute some of that, and especially because you're inhaling it too.
Right.
It's a gas form, and that just goes straight to your brain.
Even being on scene after the fire was put out, just the little fumes that would come up, it just felt so terrible.
Okay, so what are the other halides? Bromine. So signs of bromide poisoning: skin rashes, severe acne, loss of appetite, abdominal pain, fatigue, metallic taste, and cardiac arrhythmias. So that's acute poisoning. The long-term chronic poisoning would be the iodine blocking effects and the depression, low libido, cancers. Okay, and so moving on to chlorine. Now, chlorine is a real interesting animal because you need chlorine. If you don't have chlorine, you're going to die. but it really depends on what form chlorine is in. Okay, so if you have chlorine's not often thought as being poison because it's used so much in everyday lives, and that's a problem. But oftentimes, it's not the dose of these toxins that's the problem, but the total number of doses you receive in a day. It's like I remember one ad for high fructose corn syrup. Like it was back in Texas, so that had to be the early 2000s when I lived there, and it was like, it's like the amount of corn syrup that you get in your average treat is insignificant, blah 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 blah, and it's like, yeah, and I remember I was like 16 at the time, but it's like, yeah, but if everything has a little bit in it, at the end of the day, isn't that a lot of corn syrup?
Right.
And it's like, well, turns out I was right. So, so yeah, it's the same problem. If everything has a little chlorine in it, especially in the wrong form, you got a problem. So chlorine poisoning symptoms include digestive system disorders, so burning of the mouth, swelling of the throat, throat pain, stomach pain, vomiting, blood in the stool. So this would be chlorine gas. Chlorine. So it's like if you actually had high dose chlorine, or you drank like bleach or something like that.
Okay.
This would be that. It can damage your circulatory system when it's a gas. It changes the pH in your blood, causes low blood pressure, serious injury to the eyes, blurry vision, burning, irritation, extreme cases vision loss, skin damage resulting from tissue injury, burns, irritation. A few common household products and substances that have chlorine tablets used in swimming pools. That's a big one. Swimming pools are probably the number one. Everybody thinks, oh, drinking water, and it's like, yeah, that has a significant amount in it. When I worked for Medina Water Sanitation, they had big drums of chlorine, and it was the only thing that anybody took seriously there, because if that was, whenever they came and changed it out, and they didn't do it often, but I was there when they did it, and they were prepared. It was full hazmat, because if something happened and they dropped that, they would have to immediately clear the facility and clear like almost a multi-mile radius around there. It was so toxic. Mm-hmm. But we can put it in the water; it's fine.
Right.
But that brings us but there's a little bit in the water, but that particular form of chlorine will, for the most part, evaporate a lot, unless you're in Canton City, in which case, dear God, how much do they put in there? It feels like I'm taking a shower in a pool every day.
Right. I thought they were draining the pool into my glass.
Exactly. But so swimming pool water, for a lot of Americans, is a major toxic exposure for chlorine, because whatever goes on your skin is going in you. And so everybody says, well, I'm going to take a bath and Epsom salts and herbs and do all these things because it's going to pull out toxins and I'm going to absorb all of this stuff. And it's like, yes, that's absolutely true. But if you take a bath in like the wrong form of chlorine or high dose chlorine in a pool or hot tub, that's going to go in too, and you're going to get chlorine poisoning directly through your skin. And then, of course, bleach products. So anything that has bleach in it will have chlorine. And chlorine is really interesting because it's a base. A lot of the stuff that burns us, that we're familiar with, is an acid. Mm-hmm. And acid is like in the movies where it's like the person like gets thrown on them and then smoke comes off of them. Right, and it's like, oh, I'm burning. And it's like, that's true. But if you've ever seen... probably one of the best examples of a base burn or an alkaline burn is from RoboCop, the original. Okay. When the guy is trying to run RoboCop at the last fight in the end, and then he hits the toxins, and then all of a sudden he's like a melted, squishy monster thing, and he's like, "Help me!" That's more authentic. That's what a really extreme, on the high end base would do to a person, because it turns your tissues into jelly because it dissociates the protein. Whereas an acid will coagulate the protein and bring it together. A base dissociates it and separates them. So you just kind of jelly and melt out. Yeah, it's gross. And in actuality, if you get bleach on you or like a really strong base cleaner, you think, oh, it's slippery. That's not slippery. That's your skin melting. It's bad. So fluoride. Now, fluoride is the one that really confuses a lot of people. Okay, because first impression of fluoride, if you don't know me, is
Oh, it's got to be wonderful.
yeah. Well, no, I mean it's for your teeth. Everybody knows
Of
that
course.
fluoride makes strong teeth.
I remember in school we used to get a cup of it, and
Yeah,
we would swish it around as a class,
yeah,
to strengthen our teeth.
yeah, yeah. And then they make it all bubblegum flavor and all
Yeah,
that
that's
stuff.
my initial impression. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was bubblegum flavor mouthwash, but don't swallow it.
No, no, because it's toxic.
That's what they said. Don't swallow it. You got to spit it out.
Yeah,
Hmm.
because it's toxic.
Right.
Yeah, same with toothpaste, same with all these things because it has so much fluoride in it. So the problem with that is that like nobody understands strength versus hardness. So fluoride does make teeth harder, not stronger, because strength is a ratio of hardness versus ductility.
Hmm.
And so like you can have if it's too hard, it's going to be brittle and it'll chip off.
Hmm.
And that also there's no give to it, so you produce microfractures in it as well, and that can be places where bacteria and other things can get in there, and then you have increased cavities and other things. So you end up taking more fluoride because you think that, oh, my teeth need more. They're not strong enough. They need this. No, they don't. It doesn't work that way. We won't get into teeth too much, but it doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this debate all the time with dentists.
I'm sure.
And it's like, guys, it's neurotoxin. Like, it doesn't work that way. So there's two. So if you're going to supplement fluoride, which I don't suggest, but if you're going to, the natural fluoride is calcium fluoride, and that's a trace mineral. And so you would only want to take calcium fluoride in a full trace mineral complex. Like the ionic trace mineral complex we have here, 72 trace minerals. If you look at the data sheet for it, calcium fluoride is on there, but it's only a few parts per million. It's extremely trace. It's very small. The synthetic fluoride, which is technically an industrial waste, is sodium fluoride. And this is the heavy metal that everybody supplements with because it's an industrial waste. So if we can sell it back to the public instead of throwing it out, that would be even better, right? So both are technically poisons in large amounts. So so if you take too much calcium fluoride or sodium fluoride, you're going to get fluoride poisoning. Okay? So in the 1930s, fluoride was used to treat overactive thyroid because it decreases TSH. So your thyroid stimulating hormone. So everybody out there that's taking fluoride treatments and drinking fluoride that has fluoride in the water, some municipalities put that in there, and Canton does. Like all of those things, and then all of a sudden you wake up and it's like you have hypothyroid. Well, you were just medicated for having an overactive thyroid. So if you don't have an overactive thyroid and you have a normal thyroid, you're going to get a suppressed thyroid. Right. So that's the literature. Okay. Unlike other halide poisons, fluoride is actively added in large amounts to lots of municipal water supplies in an effort to increase dental health. The effect, so we already talked about this effect on teeth is outside the scope of the video, but you don't need it, and you don't need to treat your teeth with it. And the other thing too, which I'm not sure if I touch on here, is that lots of people come and see me for insomnia.
Yeah.
But fluoride, especially when it goes through the teeth, goes directly up to the pineal gland. And without getting into the spiritual or the frequency vibrations that the pineal gland actually is, it is the clock of the body.
Right.
And when that gets calcified with fluoride and calcium, you lose the ability to tell internal time. You have no idea what time it is. So it's like you get sleepy during the day and you're wide awake at night.
Oh, wow.
And so one of the best things that we can, and that also has effects on depression and anxiety and other things too. So one of the best things that we can do is use high-dose iodine to pull all of these things out, because iodine will displace all of these things. So the conclusion of the halides is all halides combine with iodine receptor sites in the cell. This means that when iodine is low, as is all Americans, that bromine, chlorine, fluoride, and radioactive iodine will bind with the iodine receptor sites, blocking all metabolic activity and effectively shutting down cellular energy production. Large amounts of iodine will dislodge the clogging and restore cellular metabolism. And this goes far beyond like six-pack abs or
Mm-hmm.
losing weight.
Mm-hmm.
This is your ability to be alive. Like if you are not making cellular energy, you are dying.
Right.
That's the bottom line, and that's what you have to understand. And that includes, in the time when everybody's asking me, it's everybody's scared out of their minds of COVID and the vaccine and all of this stuff. If you're not making cellular energy, if your thyroid is down and your metabolism is down, your immune system is down.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see later iodine's role in that. So now we can finally talk about iodine. We talked about everything that shuts iodine out, but the conclusion with all of that is just take more iodine. Mm-hmm. It solves itself. I mean, it's a major problem, but it's a problem of facts. People don't understand what's going on. If they did understand it, it's just a matter of you take this little dropper, this little jar, and you put this brown liquid into more liquid so you don't burn yourself, and then you just drink that. That's it.
Right. Well, kind of like if you get the carbon monoxide poisoning, what do you need to do?
Oxygen.
Just go outside and breathe.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
It's simple.
But if you don't know it, you're going to die.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what we have here. So the true role of iodine in metabolism is far outside the scope of what we even have time to talk about tonight. And in fact, it's actually almost useless because mostly at that point it's just arrows pointing to one reaction and another, mm-hmm. And it's not necessary to understand the importance of it. But
apologies to all the chemistry teachers who might be watching and.
Well,
not that it's
if
not
you're a
important,
chemistry teacher, if you want to know it, I got the slides.
Right.
I got them. But the reason we don't do slides like that is that I watch when we do live shows. Yeah. I watch everybody glaze over, they start checking their phones, and I'm like, no, this is the good stuff.
Look at this arrow.
Yeah, this going to this, going to that. This is how it is. This is what's going on. And they're like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
So we left that out. If you want it, we got it. I'll just send you the 400-page textbook. It'll be fine. You'll love it. So simplistic concept is that iodine is used by the thyroid to make T3 and T4, which are thyroid hormones, and those regulate metabolism. So T3, thyroid with 3 iodines. Thyroid hormone, 3 iodines. T4, thyroid hormone with 4 iodines. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's not hard. To go along with that, every cell in the body has iodine receptors on the cell membrane. They facilitate metabolism in the cell as well. So the membrane uses iodine. The cytoplasm uses iodine. The mitochondrial membrane, and then inside the mitochondrium, that all uses iodine. Mm-hmm. You need iodine in every step of the way, or you are going to have enzymes and reactions that cannot complete themselves.
Right.
And that's why you feel like crap.
Mm-hmm. Compromised cell structure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Respiration of cell, gas exchange, ion exchange, the whole deal. Yeah, absolutely. Now, what's interesting, though, is that if, like, most Americans get close to 0 iodine, they get somewhere between, most Americans don't even hit, unless you have a heavy seafood diet, like you eat a lot of seaweed.
Yeah.
Or food, like literal seafood,
yeah.
like mussels and salmon and other things. And mm-hmm. and so Dr. Ricky and I live in Ohio, and we don't get a lot of seafood.
No, we don't. Also, because we're so far from the coast, our soil is more deficient in iodine.
That is absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And so most Americans in the central states area, and then even in the big cities and other things, do not get even the RDA, which is 150 micrograms of iodine a day. So if you look up what a microgram is, it's a millionth of a gram. So 150 millionths of a gram. That's not a lot. And we don't even hit that.
Right.
And so we're going to go over some shocking numbers that are the real numbers for that. And I'll just, it's like if anybody wants to comment what their guess is on how much iodine you should really be taking, and anybody that's heard my presentation, you can't comment. Okay, so because we already had some live presentations about this. So to go along with iodine comprises up to half of your immune system, and that's because it manages your immune system requires a lot of cellular energy to work, a lot of it. And so if you're not producing cellular energy, you don't have a good immune system. Period. If you're low in iodine, you're more susceptible to infections and diseases and infectious diseases and cancers. Period. Um, and that's because the cancer cells actually arise from being they get stuck into a sugar metabolism, and so because they can't do aerobic respiration without iodine, and so they get stuck there, they mutate into a cancer cell, and that's what actually drives it. So by having a good metabolism, you are actually lowering your cancer potential from the metabolistic theory of cancer production. And there's other ways to get it, but that's one of them. We don't actually get it; you develop it. So let's kind of be truthful on that. And I use the right words. Words count. So most people think of the body or metabolism of the body as just how many calories a person burns and being skinny. The reality is that metabolism is how much energy your body produces to do work. So that is like, oh, you get tired at 3 o'clock because you have an energy dip. That's literally you run out of the energy production. Like your body is so low on energy in that period of the day because you don't have the chemistry to do it. You literally have to shut down and almost reboot. That's like a nap.
Sure, reboot.
Yeah. And so, but most people don't do that. They just go out and get a frappuccino,
Right.
And then they get all high and jacked up on that, and then they don't get any more work done for the rest of the day anyway.
Right.
So, so it does. So the metabolism fights diseases, maintains body system, heals body systems. Malfunction of the metabolism will break down an entire body and a disease waiting to happen or manifest. So iodine detox. So what did they teach you about detox at New York or whatever it is called now?
Right. Yeah. So detox tends to be elimination based. You know, if we're going to detox, we're going to take away this, that, and the other thing, and see which one happens to be the bad guy.
Right. Okay. Do they talk about like cleanses and other things, or?
Oh yeah, we do an annual cleanse at the school, and we'll do. We're going to eat celery and
all that stuff.
Take a couple supplements, and that's our version of detox.
Okay, that's not bad for 1984.
Right.
But that's not the position that I hold. Okay, and that's just because clinically speaking, that doesn't really work very well. I mean, you're gonna feel better doing that because you're gonna like alkalize acidic systems, and you're going to temporarily increase oxygen absorption rates and all that other stuff. But you're not actually getting anything out. Or the worst part is you're going to be moving stuff around because you're not going to have enough phase 2 chemicals, like phase 2 detox chemicals, to actually get it out at the rate that you're moving it. So then it most likely just will settle on your brain or something like that.
Yeah, regroup.
Yeah,
regroup.
It always settles in the brain. That's why I tell everybody, it's like, no, just leave it alone. Just leave it alone.
Leave it where it is,
don't mess with it. So a surprising occurrence is when my clients started taking higher doses of iodine. They had weird tastes and smells. Like all of a sudden they'd come in and they'd be like, something wrong with your water? Like, did you check your water filters? Because we sell water at the clinic. So those that don't know. Okay. And it's like, check your water because there might be something wrong with your filters. And I'm like, I'm drinking my coffee and I'm like, nope. Yeah. Nope. Because I would know it because it's the same water that goes into my coffee machine and the same water that I use for the homeopathics and the same water that I use for everything. No, there's nothing wrong with it. And at first I thought, well, maybe they got something in the bottles that they were using, or maybe they, this or that and the other. And then finally one day I woke up and I was literally exhaling what I could taste to be iodine. Like I was exhaling it. And at first I was like, oh my God, I'm taking way too much iodine and everything. And then I realized, no. It's just, it's saturating the lungs, and that's where it was going, and that's a good thing. And since then it's gone away. But like that is one of the signs that you actually are moving stuff around in a good way. Awesome. Is that when you get these weird tastes and smells. So I saw later in the scans that most of these clients were moving heavy metals. Like, so I would never been successful in moving any heavy metals out of the body until we started really working with iodine. We did, and I have, anybody that comes by the clinic, like you can see the whole wall of herbals and everything, and it's like I have all of this stuff, but none of them were extraordinarily effective until iodine. So me personally, I had so I was doing about somewhere between 250 and 400 milligrams a day. It just kind of depended how many squirts I wanted to put into the water. And if that sounds like a lot, based on modern standards, based on that 150 micrograms that we said earlier, well, that's about 300,000 times more,
Right.
But what people don't know is that in the 30s, like 1935, 1940, and then prior, that was just the standard dose. Like nobody thought twice of, and in fact, it was 300 to 900 milligrams per day, and then here's some beef liver pills to go on top of it. And there's an old, some sort of old medical, old English adage saying where it's, and I'm not going to do the old English because I'm terrible at it, but basically it's like if you don't know what's wrong with them, just give them iodine, give them K plus I, which is iodine, potassium iodide, and so you just give them that, and they'll be fine. It was literally the cure all for everything, and it did. It did cure almost everything. We're taking that 200 to 400 milligrams a day. I got lower GI discomfort. It didn't hurt.
Okay.
It wasn't ruining my day, but I could definitely feel it's like, oh, that's a little tender. Okay. And then later I learned that iodine is a potent anti-parasite and bacterial adaptogenic killer. Okay, so probably what it was doing was that all of that, and I have had people that don't know me, like my health journey started when my whole digestive system was wrecked from top to bottom from taking like super high potency antibiotics for acne, and that almost killed me. They would say otherwise. They would say, but we tracked it down to basically that, and that was the start of everything bad. So having bad stuff in my colon is not really all that surprising, but lasted for about 2 weeks and moved on, and I've felt better and better and better with it. But what is an adaptogenic killer? Well, that means that it kills all the bad stuff and supports all the good stuff. So a lot of people ask me, it's like, well, if I take too much iodine, will it affect my probiotic balance? And the answer is no, it won't. It'll enhance that because it'll kill all the competing stuff for it.
Right. So
it's a good terrain modifier. Iodine has the ability to push all the other bad halides out, and we talked about that's all the halides, all the previous slides, and all the bad stuff that we talked about. Just take iodine. It'll get it out. And then probably one of the most well-hidden aspects of iodine, and it is extremely well-hidden, is that in excess, iodine produces an antioxidant fat called delta-iodolactone. And this fat is 300 times more powerful than vitamin C, and you make it, you can't supplement it, you can only make it in excess when there's excess iodine. So you need enough iodine to saturate all the cells. You need enough iodine to balance out the bromide poisoning, and then you need enough iodine to run your thyroid and the thyroid hormones. Then you can make this.
Then you make it. Okay.
And that's why high-dose iodine is so important as a concept, because you're not wasting it. Okay. So I often tell my clients that you not need to take supplements for detoxification. You need all your body systems working together so that they will take care of detox. Your body wants to get rid of this. Your body isn't actively saying, no, I'm going to, it's like mercury, yeah, it's killing me, but I'm really going to hold on to it. I'm fond of it. It is not. The reason that it puts it in all of these supposedly weird places is because it doesn't have anywhere to put it. So it puts it in the place that it can do the least damage, and then it'll encapsulate it somehow until it can get it out. And then you come along with your detox protocol, like your herbs that really push that thing through, and you don't have the ability to do anything with it, and it hurts you. I've seen that over and over again. And I think that is more so in our modern times than it was in like the 80s or 90s or something like that. Yeah. It's just that there's so much more that stuff that used to work back then just doesn't work that well anymore. But the other thing too is that, okay, at some point, like after a while, when you have enough of these phase 2 chemicals and you did want to do something like that would probably work even better.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something to keep in mind too. So iodine in the thyroid, most people understand that you need some iodine for function of the thyroids, and many new clients often tell me that they get RDA levels or higher to be safe on the safe side. So I get a lot of people saying, well, I take 500 micrograms per day.
Right.
Okay, so you take 500 1/millionth of a gram of iodine.
Right.
That's still infinitesimally small. I can't even measure that here.
Yeah.
I have to actually measure more and then put it in something and then break that down, and then I'll have like a 1% powder or a 1% solution in order to get to microgram level.
Yeah,
That's
I
how
feel
small
like you
it is.
should be able to sniff that out of the air.
You really, if you worked in a
small.
salt mine or something like that, you probably do
Probably
get
would.
it. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
absolutely. It is that small, and that's a good point. Let's see. We talked about it, and so in the 1930s or the 40s, there was an epidemic of goiter in West Virginia, and it was found that a minimum iodine requirement to prevent goiter in most people was 150 micrograms per day. Now, that's where we get the RDA
That's our
level.
standard. Okay.
But that is the prevention of goiter. Goiter means that you are so deficient in iodine that you have this huge growth popping out of the side of your neck.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, if that goes on too long, you're going to die. Okay? Mm-hmm. Because you're so low in iodine, you can't function. And so 150 micrograms just prevents goiter. It has nothing to do with any sort of functional metabolism. And so even Mercola, Dr. Mercola, which I highly respect Mercola, I heard him say at one point that he, just to be on the safe side, he doesn't recommend anything over 400 micrograms per day. And that is how, now he is a discerning and very like research-driven MD, but that is how pervasive the fear of iodine has been indoctrinated into all of these doctors. And it's simply not true.
Yeah, because if you're told something enough times,
right, and it's hard to break through that mind control. So, and we know that's wrong because the Japanese study done in the 80s and 90s, that Brownstein and Van Leeuwen, that they wrote the book on it, found that the baseline of 12.5 milligrams to 18 milligrams a day is safe and very effective at maintaining thyroid function. And that is because the Japanese literally, they use seaweed as salt.
Okay.
So they don't have salt shakers.
Mm-hmm. They
have seaweed shakers. They put dried seaweed in everything, and they eat seaweed. The more traditional Japanese diet eats seaweed with everything. Okay. Seaweed or kelp is one of the most highly packed. It's got the most iodine of any vegetable or plant source or material source on the planet, and and that's how. So they eat so much of that they get milligrams of it per day. 12 to 18 milligrams a day is safe. So notice the word, not work, but notice the word maintaining. So how do you restart the thyroid? Most MDs that understand iodine will now say that the toxicity of our environment, that a minimum of 50 milligrams per day is necessary to keep the body saturated and maintain function. And that's assuming that you are not toxic. That is just staving off everything. So you already have a perfectly clean body and you're just keeping everything out. Mm-hmm. So you're not having to displace anything. That's 50 milligrams a day. Now, I personally at my clinic, so I run through all of this with my clients because I'm not a doctor. I can't tell them to do anything, but I'm also not bound by any regulations, so I can just present accurate research for them, and I can present the research, and people are intelligent. They can decide what they want to do from themselves once they see research side by side by side. And that's really what they pay me to do, and we have found that somewhere between 100 and 200 milligrams per day to achieve saturation. And I'll point out that Brownstein and like iodine, why you need it.
Yeah.
A lot of his doctors will prescribe or tell people to take 100 milligrams a day for up to a year or more until they reach saturation. So 100 to 200 milligrams it has foundational merit to it. But they found that that's what they need in order to feel good. How long does it take to saturate the body? However long it takes. Some people 6 months, other people 3 years. Mm-hmm. It just depends. I would say that the average is about a year, like really consistently taking it every day. The good news is that you're going to feel much better probably within the first week of taking relatively high dose iodine. It is really a light switch. Yeah. It comes on. Yeah. And it's like, and I've said many times, I personally take around, on average, 300 milligrams a day. And then it's really simple. When my scans say I have too much, yeah, or when I have any symptoms of hyperthyroidism, which is jitteriness, irritability, or insomnia, mm-hmm, I'll stop taking it, mm-hmm, and I'll be fine in about a week because, mm-hmm, it'll just get peed out. Right. It's not scary. It doesn't stick with you. So here's the big question in the room: iodine and thyroid medication. So starting sometime in the 1950s, iodine shifted from the universal cure for colds and flus and thyroid condition to the cause of thyroid condition. And this was done because there were two bogus studies on rats that were never duplicated. They were never, so when we say duplicated, it's not that people said, oh, it doesn't exist, it's like, no, they read the studies, and normally what you would do if you take something that has been medically proven to be a universal cure, which iodine was before that, okay, it was taught in medical school as being cures for thyroid conditions. Then all of a sudden you have a study that refutes all of it, but it's only done in rats and never replicated in humans, and then nobody ever replicated that study to see if they screwed up. So at that point, they took it and they ramrodded into the textbooks, and starting around 1954 on, every medical student was taught that iodine was the cause of hyperthyroidism, and you had to limit the amount that your patients got because you didn't want to exacerbate symptoms.
Mm-hmm. That's in the book, actually.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely true. So like we said, again, in contrast, prior to 1940-ish, they didn't know what's wrong with you. You came in, it's like, I've got corona. 300 milligrams to 900 milligrams a day of iodine. Here's liver pills. Go home. Uh-huh. That's what they would do. And you know what? It probably would still work now.
Right.
And then basically, when it's like, how long did they do that? Well, when the symptoms went away, then there you go. You're done. Mm-hmm. And this, of course, predated any patent medicine in any thyroid medication. So as soon as you have to say, it's like when they talk about, so it's like, oh, don't take too much vitamin D, it could really mess you up. Mm-hmm. Well, it turns out that, we're jumping the gun a little bit, but corona, depletes vitamin D. If you have high vitamin D levels and you take niacin to really drive it in, you're going to be ahead of the game. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, I'm finding personally that whatever they say, oh, no, be careful of that, you probably want as much as you can get your hands on. Definitely. Uh-huh. Yeah. And then, if you would show this to most modern MDs, they would lose their minds. You could see the brains melting out of the back of their heads, because you're going to kill people with that much.
Right. Their thyroids are going to explode.
Yeah. It's like, and everybody's like, you could get hyperthyroidism. I'm like, well, I'm here to tell you that all of my clients that can barely get through the day without falling asleep or having lethargy or depression, they would take some hyperthyroid right now.
Right. The other thing is, if that were true, and increased iodine makes thyroid problems, shouldn't decreased iodine decrease thyroid problems? That certainly has not happened.
There's too much logic in that statement. That's like we're gonna have to arrest you and put you in some sort of camp to change that around. Right. You obviously have not read the marketing material.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly true. So it's we've got this epidemic of thyroid conditions, especially in women, and especially in women that have had children, right? Because the child sucks it all out of them. In order just to maintain that. And then what did you just get done seeing is that in children, iodine is the most Go
That's
ahead.
right. That's right. Iodine was declared by the World Health Organization to be the most preventable way to decrease mental retardation
Right,
in children.
so non-genetic,
Non-genetic, correct?
non-genetic, but like malformation, like you don't form the brain correctly, you don't form speech processes correctly. Iodine is it.
Iodine is it, the number one.
Yep, and they found pretty specific. Like I think there's somewhere in Brownstein's book, which if anybody wants the book, just message me. I'll email it to you.
It's
I have
fantastic.
it in a
Yeah.
PDF. And it was, I think it was like on average, siblings that took iodine versus, or didn't take iodine versus siblings that took iodine, was about a 15-point difference in IQ.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that too.
Crazy. 15 points
that's pretty significant.
That's you're in a different percentile at that point.
Right.
That's the difference between going to community college, not that you would actually want to go to any college, but going from
right.
one level of study to another level of study, or being able to do something that's high functioning or something that's rote or something basic.
Well, yeah, and nobody wants to be considered the dumb one of the siblings.
No, but you see, the thing is that like it's like so like it's again outside the scope of the talk, but how much of our society has lost intelligence, not because there's anything wrong with people, but because we as a society are malnourished in some of these components that are directly meant for our brain. And I would have to say, being a student of history, that it is directly intentional and that is done for nefarious means, because nobody would vote for half the people that they are voting for now if they actually were thinking critically or had the capacity to do it. Maybe unpopular, but this is why we're putting this
unpopular opinions.
This is why we're putting this on BitChute and Telegram and not YouTube. So there you go. Okay, so this is the big one. It's like, okay, what happens if you're taking thyroid medication? So what's going to happen is that your TSH is going to spike rapidly, but TSH is an iodine transporter, and if you don't have any iodine to transport, your TSH is going to be low. If you suddenly introduce iodine, TSH is going to be high. Now, this is where most doctors would say, "Gee, I'm right, hyperthyroidism," and it's like, no, calm down, give it a month, and it'll spike and it'll go down. And then, but you see, the interesting thing is if TSH is high, if you have hyperthyroidism, TSH will be high, and you'll have every other symptom of hyperthyroidism that's there. When you have iodine, when TSH is acting as a transporter, you don't have any of that. Your TSH is high, but you feel fine.
Right.
Okay? You have more energy.
Okay.
But you're not hyper. Okay? And then at that point, and so it's like, so none of my clients have ever complained of hyperthyroidism, to the point where it's like, I mention it to them, kind of, but I used to give them this whole like medical disclaimer rigmarole for about 6 months, and finally I was like, this isn't a thing.
Yeah, it's
not a thing. Just like too much vitamin D isn't a thing, and we'll discuss that. Stay tuned for vitamin D.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned for vitamin D. That's beyond this talk. And then basically what happens if you're on medication, you're either going to, like, nothing is going to happen, or you're going to get hyper, in which case decrease your medication, or you'll take some sort of weirdo dip, and then you'll come back up, and then at that point we'll work on medication. But you honestly don't know, because your body, you don't know how your body is going to compensate for the artificial external factor that is the medication.
Right.
And that's where you just don't know. I can tell everybody that's listening that at least in my clinic with my clients, nobody has experienced anything adverse. Some of my clients, after being on about 100 to 150 milligrams, have had a hyperthyroid reaction, but it was mild. They could feel like, okay, I'm getting hyper, and all they did was they lowered their medication. That was it, and then they were fine. And then, but isn't that the whole point? Is at some point we want to get off the medication?
Right. Did we forget that?
Yeah. No. That's the whole point. And it's like, for the majority of them, they're working their way down, and at some point everything will be working again, and then they won't need it. But let's say that like maybe something is functionally wrong. Maybe damage to the thyroid was done. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of in uncharted waters with that. But let's say they can reduce their medication by 75%.
Right.
I'm fine with that. It seems like a win to me.
You know, that's one of the biggest complaints that I hear actually from even the doctors prescribing is it's so difficult to regulate thyroid medication.
Oh my God. No,
Lord have mercy on the patients because it's even worse for them.
Yeah, no, it's terrible. It's like when guys come in and they're like, I want to go on TRT. What are your thoughts of that? And I'm like, let's try eggs, boron, and beef first.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Like let's get you if you're a guy and you want to do anything with so first of all, if you're a guy and you're not and you feel like you've got low T, just as an aside, freebie, because that talk isn't on the schedule anytime soon.
Okay.
Is that get more boron, supplement about 10 or more milligrams of boron per day, because that will free up testosterone from sex-binding globulins, so that'll give you an instant boost, because testosterone bound to sex-binding globulin is inert; it can't do any work. So you can get a 20 to 30% boost by just regulating boron right away. Then you need to get good cholesterol up, not blood cholesterol, but good dietary cholesterol to create the sterol or the testosterone and sterol groups in order to do that. Then you need to clean up your liver so that you can metabolize all these end-of-life hormones so you don't get weirdo cancers or anything after that.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, you need to get iodine so you actually have the metabolism to do something with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But good fats, so eggs and beef, lots of it. So it's like you want to eggs are hard to eat, easy to drink.
Right.
So there you go, freebie. Iodine and depression. This is a major one for me because I suffered hard from depression, like suicidal. In fact, I couldn't take the medication because I had major suicidal thoughts, and so I just was like, I can't do that. I did everything, including taking some what would be known as research chemicals. Where they're legal, but they're not real products yet, and it's like anybody can put anything in their body that they want to, and so that's what I chose to do because I was desperate, and it worked. It balanced it out, but I was stuck on it, and I was very scared I'd have to be stuck on it for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But it didn't have any of the side effects that like an SSRI or something like that would do, and I could not take those. And if I would describe my condition to any prescribing doctor, they would say, you cannot take these because you hit these categories.
Yeah.
And the potential that you would actually kill yourself on these is extremely high. So no, you can't do it. So I was desperate. But when I started taking iodine about a year ago, in a month, all gone.
Beautiful.
Couple that with amino acid therapy. So the amino acid therapy started it, but I still dipped. Up and down, up and down, up and down. But the ups were better and the downs weren't so bad.
Okay.
You throw iodine onto that to balance all the regulation out, good to go. Never looked back. That's it. So if you have depression, if you have anxiety, if you have these things, these neurological conditions, you can message me. We'll do a consult and everything. We can help you with that. But if you just want to throw iodine on it, you'll be better off for it. Okay? So what's interesting, though, let's say that you don't have severe depression. Let's say you just don't have any thrill of work anymore. It's like everything has just lost the spark. No, the days aren't bright. They're all just kind of blah and gray. You've lost your mojo.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Take iodine. Take high-dose iodine. It was one of the most interesting anecdotes from the book.
Yeah.
I remember reading it when I was like, that was a major part of my study was Brownstein's work, and they said that it restored the will or the zeal for work. And I was like, all right, sure,
maybe,
okay, fine. I mean, it's like I have a zeal for my work, but you know what? It's really true. The ability to focus, the ability to say, this is what I need to do, and I have the energy to do it. You're no longer dragging yourself around because you have to do it. You are doing it because you're getting it done, and it's doing well, and you can concentrate on it, and like you're not thinking about, oh, if I can only hit the couch.
Yes. Yeah, just looking for that clock out time.
Right. Iodine. That's where it's at. And then we already talked about depression, mental clarity, all that stuff. Oh, if you're a student, or you're a mother, or you're a father, and you've got students, or you are studying for an exam, or a certification, or a professional anything, and you are not on iodine and fish oil, you are leaving points on the table. Yeah. That's as easy. Yeah. It's the bottom line. You got to be on iodine. You got to be on fish oil. You got to feed that brain. You got to increase that focus. Iodine and fetal development. Again, total fetal development is it's a bunch of slides, a bunch of arrows.
Yeah.
It's outside the scope of this, but the main thing is that iodine is involved in brain development, neural development, neural tube development, and then, of course, setting the stage for the metabolism for the rest of their life.
Right, cellular metabolism.
Cellular metabolism. So it's incredibly important. Well, it's all important, but this is made more important because this is what we're talking about right now.
Right.
So again, I'd highly recommend everybody would read Iodine and Why You Need It by David Brownstein. It's highly accessible. It's not a textbook. And it will tell you exactly what you need to know in order. And he's an MD. Now, I can't tell you to do anything. Dr. Ricky can only crack your back. Okay.
Well, I can give you any nutritional advice that complements any of the conditions that I treat.
That's true. That's true. I can't say anything, and in not being able to say anything, I can say whatever I want to.
Right. Totally freeing.
Yeah, exactly. So, so I can tell you what I did with my family and my mom, because I can do whatever I want with them, and they'll let me. And I can say that following Brownstein's book and following the 50 milligram baseline or more has really changed all of our lives. And again, though, it's like, don't be afraid of it. If anything happens, stop taking it for a week, drink plenty of water, and you'll pee it out. This is so any because this is going to come up, and it's like I'm going to get messages from all the moms out there. As a general guideline, what would you give a child? And it's like, well, I can't tell you what to give your child, but I can tell you what I'm going to give my child. So how about that?
Yep.
So up to 3 years old of Lugol's 5%, and you got to know your percentages. And if you have different Lugol's or you're taking my Lugol's, it's about half this because we make a 10% Lugol's here. But most commercial Lugol's is 5% because they don't. It's too concentrated. People tend to it's like, ooh, what's this? Oh, it's be careful. Anyway, so up to 3 years old, 1 drop that would give you about 3.5 milligrams. So if you do 1 drop in water in a solution of water, like let's say a couple ounces, then you take half of that water and give it to the child. The result is about 3 milligrams. If you do 3 to 5 years, 6.5 milligrams or 1 drop of 5%. And actually, people, what's interesting is that drops are a unit of measurement because of the tension of the water.
Yes.
The surface tension of the water, drops are very regular.
Reliable, yeah.
And so it's about 15-ish drops. It depends on your dropper, but it's about 15 drops per milliliter.
Mm-hmm.
And it really does work out pretty well that way. So you can use drops. So 5 to 9 years old, 2 drops. You're at 12.5 milligrams. 9 years to 16, it's about 25 milligrams. And 16 is up. Will depend on how big your 16-year-old is.
Right.
Because by that point, yeah, it's all over the map.
Yeah.
So I would say that once they really get around 80 to 100 pounds, they need to be treated like adults. Okay, they need to be adult clients or adult patients. And at that point, you're at a dosage range of 12.5 milligrams on the very low end to 300 milligrams on the high end. Personally speaking, because 16 to 25, especially in males, a little bit earlier for females, they're going to need proportionally more than, let's say, an adult 30 and up because of this increased cellular metabolism, of all of the puberty changes that they're going through. They're still growing. Might not be getting taller, but stuff's happening. So they would need more. And they need more because you have neural tube development, brain support, nervous system support, and most notably intelligence.
Critical time, right there.
Yeah.
Critical time.
And then, of course, no parent would say that they want a dumb child.
Right.
Um, yeah, okay, so we've talked about this slide pretty much. So it's Brownstein's books, 100 milligrams a day for a year or more. So he notes that the only legal recommendation is going to be the Japanese study because it's been studied, and it's 12.5 milligrams per day is safe for everybody, including pregnant or nursing. Based on everything that we just talked about, if you were pregnant or nursing, would you want to take that low of an amount? I can't tell you not to, but, you know, if you're an intelligent person and you need to watch the video again, go ahead and do it. Yeah, I take 300 milligrams a day. Ultimately, it's up to you. And ultimately, you have to do what you're comfortable with, but I would highly suggest that you do your research before, and do real research. Don't get on Google. Like, actually buy a book. Like, and don't get on Google, don't get on Facebook, and don't ask your aunt either, okay? Or whoever. Like, just you can critically think. And if you don't know how to critically think, dear God, ask me, and I'll teach you how to do it. It's what I went to school for. So to recap, you need both elemental iodine, potassium iodine, or Lugol's. Dr. Lugol was the French doctor that invented Lugol's iodine, and he was the first person to make a solution of that, and it is highly effective. We won't go into the chemistry of it, but when you mix the two together, it actually changes them so that they are better for you. Most notably, the breast tissue uses and stores elemental iodine, while the majority of the rest of the body uses potassium iodide. If you're a man and you've got prostate cancer or an inflamed prostate and you're concerned about that, it's the same thing. So whereas women are always concerned about breast cancer, ovarian cancer,
right.
Men is prostate. Although with the amount of estrogen and estrogen mimetics in our society, a lot more men should be worried about breast cancer. So we've chosen to add 100 milligrams of iodine by request. This should say by request to the master metabolic. So if you want that particular form of the master metabolic, we can put that in there. That's still not going to give you the elemental, but it'll give you a good baseline. To go along with iodoral and Lugol's solution, there's very good supplements iodoral is a supplement and Lugol's is a supplement. I read that too fast. They're both on our web store, or if you're local, you can always stop into the clinic and get some. So if you would like a consultation at My Complete Health with me, the loudmouth research scientist, then you can go onto our website, mycompletehealthnd.com. From there, you can find our contact information, give us a call or text that number or send us an email. You can also book, if you're in the area, you can book appointments directly on our website. And then if you're not in the area, you can still book an appointment, but just give us a call and we'll tell you how to send in remote samples so that we can do a remote scan. And if you don't know what we're talking about with scanning, hit the website and really look at it. Most people find it fascinating, but we might have to do a whole other talk on scanning. And so, again, we believe that a clean, toxin-free, balanced diet and proper supplementation, you can overcome the modern world and modern disease. That's what it comes down to. Now, that's very simple in process. It's very simple in process, but the execution that we've developed is very complicated. Fortunately, all you got to do is what we tell you to do. You don't have to figure it out.
That makes it so much better.
Yeah, that's all I got.
That's all I got.
All right, cool, guys. We'll see you later. You got questions, email or put them in the comments, and we will do our best to answer them all. So have a good night. We'll see you.
Thank you.